Alright chat, today we've got another reaction for y'all. I feel like this video is going to be an interesting discussion for us to have, which is why I decided to add it to my playlist and react to it. Today, this video that we're going to be reacting to is called Why Joe Gardner is Every Adult Who Wasted Their Life Waiting to Start Living It. Now, I don't know who Joe Gardner is. I feel like he's a character from a movie that I haven't seen. This is 3 weeks ago, so maybe it's like a new movie. But even just this title speaks out to me, right? Every adult who wasted their life waiting to start living it. I feel like there's a lot of people who procrastinate or who have ideas, who have dreams, who have this, who have that, and just never take that first step. And that is something that I struggle with, right? Like, I definitely am somebody who I don't fear taking my first steps, but I do tend to procrastinate a little bit. And let's just have this conversation because there's a lot of inspiration or motivation that we might be able to get from this, and I feel like I might want to be able to add my 2 cents or my thoughts. I just feel like there's a lot of people who struggle from that procrastination, and it blocks them from being able to like realize their full potential. So I'm hoping that with this, maybe somebody can get inspired to start something new or to give something a try. You feel me?
Have you ever worked towards something for your entire life, finally got it, and felt absolutely nothing? It's the climax of Pixar's Soul. Joe Gardner just played the gig of a lifetime with jazz legend Dorothea Williams. He is sweating like a madman, completely lost in the music, absolutely in love with his work. The crowd goes wild. He steps outside into the cool New York City night. His name is on the marquee. He did it. And then he looks at Dorothea and asks, "What happens next?" She tells him they come back and do it all again tomorrow. And Joe just stands there, wandering out of the venue, feeling completely empty. He is wondering what it was all for. Imagine dedicating your entire existence to a single gig, only to find out it was just like any other job. Slightly more exciting, sure, but not the magical, life-altering salvation you were expecting. At that point, anyone would fall into an instant state of depression. You realize that all the people you could have connected with, all the opportunities you passed up, and all the days you took for granted are long gone. I feel like we gaslight ourselves every time we watch this movie, because Soul is marketed as a cute animated film about jazz and finding your spark. A movie that cost $150 million to make and spent 4 years in production. It won 2 Academy Awards and holds a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. But when you strip away the jokes, the body-swapping cat, and the ethereal glowing blobs, Soul isn't really a movie about following your dreams. It's a movie about the paralyzing psychological trap of deferred happiness. It is a brutal, uncomfortable mirror held up to every adult who has ever caught themselves saying, "When I finally get this, then I'll be happy." Psychologists actually have a name for this. It's called the arrival fallacy, and it is ruining your life. Now, before we get into the heavy psychological profiling of a cartoon jazz pianist, we have to establish the baseline. We have to look at who Joe Gardner actually is. Joe is a middle school band teacher with big dreams of becoming a professional jazz musician. From the moment we meet him, it's clear that music isn't merely a hobby. It is his lifeblood. He constantly reiterates how jazz is his life, his dream, and his one reason for living. But Joe is not happy in his job or where he is in life. He believes his failures have nothing to do with him and everything to do with others who've never given him a chance. To him, the only way to do right by his spark is to live a certain archetypal life with his name on a marquee and countless gigs in the big city. Joe's ambition is pointing him toward a happiness that can only exist in the future, and it points him entirely away from the happiness that exists in each present moment. He fixates on it.
Y'all hear that, bro? That kind of hit me too, bro. I think this video was gonna go in a totally different direction, but this shit's hitting me too because I feel like I definitely have a sense of like, I'm very tunnel vision, right? I'm just gonna block everything else out and focus on what I got going on because I know that like once I make it to where I wanna go, I'll be able to buy myself a lot more time. I'll be able to do a lot more things, but it's like I'm sacrificing a lot right now. And just like what they're saying, like I'll be thinking about it like, damn, should I have gone to that party? Damn, maybe I should have gone to the club tonight and just hung out with my homies. Damn, maybe I shouldn't be, you know, this, that, or maybe I should slow down a little bit. But on the other hand, there's just that bit of guilt that's like, bro, like all that time that you waste and you could be putting towards work And if and when you don't make it, you know what I'm saying, you're gonna be looking at these times where you was having fun like, I could have been working, you know what I'm saying? So it's a very double-edged sword where it's like, all right, bro, like, I definitely have a goal and I have a mission, but is it worth it cutting everything else out? You know what I'm saying?
His career at the expense of his connection to the world around him. He stops paying attention to the details, the small, mundane, and unremarkable things, because he sees them as insignificant. There's this scene early on where his mother reprimands him. She says, "You can't eat dreams for breakfast." She is literally begging him to be realistic and consider other aspects of his life, and Joe responds with, "I don't want to eat." Think about how absurd that is for a second. The man is literally willing to starve himself, to ignore the basic biological necessity of breakfast, because he thinks his purpose is the only thing that gives life meaning. He is so obsessed with his dream that he doesn't stop for a single moment to appreciate being alive, and we applaud this. Throughout the film, the audience is rooting for Joe. We want him to succeed, because the idea of following one's ambition is a widely accepted, celebrated notion in our society. We are culturally conditioned to believe that achieving our dreams equals fulfillment, but the movie is actively setting us up for a devastating psychological reality check. Enter Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar. He is a Harvard-trained positive psychology expert, and he coined the term arrival fallacy in his book, Happier. Ben-Shahar defines the arrival fallacy as the illusion that once we make it, once we attain our goal or reach our destination, we will reach lasting happiness. He actually discovered this through his own life. As a young elite squash player, he believed that if he could just win a major tournament, he would finally be happy. And he did win. And he was happy. For about 5 minutes. Once the euphoria faded, he found himself faced with stress, pressure, and a hollow feeling of emptiness. Accomplishing one goal simply led to a new sporting target being uncovered. His list of goals was never fully completed. Dr. Ben-Shahar says the arrival fallacy is the exact reason why some Hollywood stars struggle so deeply with mental health. These individuals start out unhappy, but they say to themselves, "It's okay, because when I make it, then I'll be happy." But then they make it. They get the Oscar, the mansion, the fame. And while they may feel briefly fulfilled, the feeling doesn't last. But this time, it's worse. This time, they are unhappy without hope. Because before, they lived under the false hope that achieving their dream would fix them. When the illusion is shattered, there is nothing left to hold on to.
Damn.
This is exactly what happens to Joe outside the jazz club. He is a man who just lost his false hope. But why does our brain do this to us? Why are we so fundamentally bad at predicting what will make us happy? Well, psychologists Timothy Wilson and Daniel Gilbert have spent decades studying this, and they call it the impact bias. The impact bias refers to our tendency to overestimate the intensity and duration of our emotional reactions to future circumstances. Gilbert and Wilson conducted dozens of studies on this. They looked at college professors who were up for tenure. These professors expected to be happy for years if they got tenure, and devastated for years if they were denied. But when the researchers checked back in, the two groups were equally happy after just a brief amount of time. They studied voters during major elections. Voters invariably predict that if their candidate wins, they're going to be ecstatic for months. In reality, their baseline happiness is barely influenced by electoral outcomes. We are biologically terrible at predicting our own emotional futures. And that brings us to the most terrifying psychological concept of all, hedonic adaptation.
What the hell?
Also known as the hedonic treadmill. In 1971, psychologists Philip Brickman and Donald Campbell proposed a theory that people return to a relatively stable, baseline level of happiness regardless of external changes. In 1978, Brickman put this to the ultimate test. He surveyed a group of recent lottery winners, people who had literally won millions of dollars, and he found that just 18 months after winning the lottery, these people were no happier than a control group of regular people who hadn't won a dime. Let me repeat that. Winning the lottery did not make them permanently happier because of the brain's ventral striatum. This is the critical player in the brain's reward system. When you get a reward, like a new car, a promotion, or a massive gig, playing with Dorothea Williams, the ventral striatum lights up. You feel a surge of excitement, but over time, it becomes less responsive to the exact same rewards. The novelty wears off. The new car just becomes your commute. The massive paycheck just becomes your new normal. The dream gig just becomes your Tuesday night. Life is simply a process of replacing one.
Man, isn't it crazy how this shit go, bro? Like, you just begin to normalize a bunch of stuff and you begin to almost take it for granted. I was even having a conversation with my roommate today, you know, and I don't want to get too preachy, too religious, too whatever, but I was talking to my homie and I was like, that's why to me, like, it's very important for me to either like pray every day or just have like a moment of like reflection or a moment of meditation where it's like, you know, there's so many things going on in the world, from, you know, the wars to, you know, the deportations to just world hunger. Like there's a lot of things going on in the world, right? And so for me, I think it's very important for me to at least start off my day by like having that moment of reflection where I'm able to think about all the things that I'm grateful for, hence, you know, having a roof over my head, hence having clothes on my back, hence having food in my fridge, hence having a job that I get paid, you know, well for. And like this guy's talking about, you know, the car that becomes commute, the paycheck that becomes regular. Like these are all things that like we strive to get that car once upon a time, or like we were dying to get paychecks like this back in the day, and now these are things that we just have and we take for granted and we look at with ease. So it's like for me, that's why I really try to take advantage of my morning and of that moment, because it's like, bro, you could really go through your life and just lose sight of all this and just begin to focus on all the bullshit that's going on. And it's like, to me, I think that sense of perspective is very important to hold on to. You feel me?
Anxiety and one desire with another. No goal spares us renewed goal seeking. The achievement treadmill keeps us running toward an ever-moving finish line, preventing us from ever feeling truly satisfied. And this isn't just academic theory. This is the exact crisis that birthed this movie. Pete Docter, the director of Soul, is a record 3-time recipient of the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. He directed Up. He directed Inside Out. He is at the absolute pinnacle of his industry. And yet, he admitted that while making Soul, he was going through a midlife crisis. He had spent his whole life building animated films, achieving every goal he ever set, and he still found himself asking, is this it? He wondered what things he would actually look back on at the end of his life and consider worthy of his limited time on Earth. If you want to know the answer to that question, you don't ask a Hollywood director. You ask someone who was out of time. Bronnie Ware was a palliative care nurse who spent 8 years caring for patients in the final weeks of their lives. In 2009, she wrote a blog post called Regrets of the Dying that was read by 8 million people and turned into a massive book. She recorded the top 5 regrets of people on their deathbeds, and the patterns are devastating. Every single male patient she nursed had the exact same regret. I wish I hadn't worked so hard.
Damn.
Deeply regretted spending so much of their lives on the treadmill of a work existence, missing their children's youth and their partner's companionship. But the regret that hits hardest, the one that perfectly mirrors Joe Gardner's tragic flaw, is this. I wish I had let myself be happier. They hadn't realized until the very end that happiness was a choice. They had focused entirely on external validation, completely missing the incredible, small, magnificent moments in between that actually bring joy. When people realize that their life is almost over, they see clearly that they spent their entire existence in the waiting room of their own lives. But here is the ultimate tragic irony of Joe's story. Joe already had the answer. He had it in his fingers every single time he sat down at the piano. Throughout the movie, we see Joe enter a state of focused bliss while playing, what he calls being zoned out. In positive psychology, this is known as the flow state, coined by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Flow is the mental state where a person is fully immersed in a feeling of energized focus and enjoyment in the process of an activity. Csikszentmihalyi literally described it as being completely involved in an activity for its own sake, where the ego falls away, time flies, and every action follows inevitably from the previous one. Like playing jazz, flow is about the process, not the destination. But instead of recognizing that this feeling, the absorption, the presence, the joy in the act itself, is what happiness actually feels like, Joe mistakes the achievement for the goal. He thinks,
man, that drummer's so tough. Bro, I'm looking at the drummer and like, this is a side note, Bruh, a lot of people who play like regular drums, they hold their sticks like this, but in jazz you hold it like this, and I noticed it and he's playing like this, and it's like, oh, that's some dope shit, bro. That's some dope shit. My drummers and my percussionists will understand, but anybody else is like, what the hell is he talking about? There's aura there, bro.
The gig is the prize.
Look at that. Look at how he's holding the stick, bro. You see how his left hand is like, he's holding it like this instead of like this?
All along. And science backs this up with terrifying precision.
That's crazy, pulling out a pizza crust from your pocket, bro.
In a landmark study published in the journal Science, Harvard psychologists Matthew Killingsworth and Daniel Gilbert used an app to gather 250,000 data points on subjects' thoughts and feelings. They found that people spend 46.9% of their waking hours thinking about something other than what they are actually doing. Nearly half of our lives are spent entirely in our own heads, and their conclusion was brutal. A human mind is a wandering mind, and a wandering mind is an unhappy mind. They found that only 4.6% of a person's happiness was attributable to the specific activity they were doing.
Damn.
But their mind-wandering status accounted for nearly 11% of their happiness, meaning it matters far less what you are achieving, and far more whether you are actually present while you do it. We live in the future, not the present. We are so obsessed with the dull past or the promising future that we completely miss the only thing that is actually real, the now. This is why 22, the unborn soul who takes over Joe's body, is so crucial to the story. 22 appreciates the simple basic parts of living: walking, eating a slice of pizza, feeling the wind. When she tells Joe that maybe skywatching or walking could be her spark, Joe dismisses it. He undervalues the mundane aspect of living because he is infected with the arrival fallacy. But
See, this is exactly what I was saying, going back to like, you know, taking for granted the little things we have. And I'm not saying little like little, but like, you know, again, the house, the clothes, the food, the peace, living in a country that, you know, I don't gotta wake up and duck for, you know, bombs, and I ain't even saying that as a joke or whatever, but like people really do live like that, right? They gotta wake up and be like, bro, somebody gonna break into my house right now and uppull, you know what I'm saying? Like, they live in a certain case of uncertainty. Whereas me, bro, I've never had to, you know what I'm saying, experience that kind of fear where it's like, is somebody gonna pull up on me today and XYZ, you know what I'm saying? And that's just something that you can lose sight of when you get in your head and you're like, man, how am I gonna make this bill? Man, my girl just left me. Man, this, that, and the third. I'm not saying that these situations are insignificant, but I'm just saying like there's so much else going on as well, and we gotta be able to have that sense of perspective, you feel me?
2 understands what a massive 2024 study from the University of Southampton just proved. Researchers found that just 10 minutes of daily mindfulness, of simply being present in the moment, reduced depression by 19.2% and anxiety.
Y'all see, bro, I ain't no therapist, I ain't no doctor, none of that, but Unc got it up here, bro.
By 12.6%. The antidote to the achievement treadmill isn't to stop having goals, it is to anchor yourself in the present. Now let's be real for a second. This is a fine lesson, except that the message is coming from a multi-million-dollar film produced by one of the largest media corporations on the planet. A corporation whose sole mission is to produce content that releases serotonin in your brain and prompts you to open your wallet. And let's not forget, Joe does get to play his dream gig. The movie doesn't punish him by taking that away, but the film doesn't say, don't chase your dreams. It says, don't make your life contingent on them. In the climactic moments of the film, Joe finally has his epiphany. He realizes that his life's meaning comes, and always has come, from the beauty of small moments. Playing the piano with his father, walking barefoot on the beach with his mother, eating a slice of his favorite pie. Happiness is more alive for Joe in these memories than it ever was after his triumphant concert. He pulls the most ordinary of objects from his pocket, a seed pod from a maple tree, and he is confronted with its absolute simplicity. The movie doesn't tell us to abandon our ambition. Having objectives is essential to personal growth. Working toward a goal can be an incredibly powerful source of happiness, but the trick is to stop viewing possible futures as static destinations that will magically cure your dissatisfaction. Life is an inherently dynamic process. The present isn't just a waiting room for your real life to begin. Your real life is happening right now, while you are busy looking at the clock. Joe's task, and ours, is to recognize that we are not driven by something outside of ourselves to achieve completion. We were complete the day we were born. The opposite of emptiness isn't achievement, it's presence. You can have your name in lights, play the biggest gig in the world, and still feel completely alone if you aren't actually there to experience it. The real terror isn't failing to achieve your dreams, it's achieving them, and realizing you missed your entire life along the way. So yeah, next time you catch yourself saying, "I'll be happy when," stop, look at the sky, eat the pizza, and realize that you have already arrived. Let me know what you think. Are you caught on the achievement treadmill right now, or have you found a way to actually live in the present?
Man, I ain't gonna lie, I feel like that definitely hit. Especially like the beginning, chat. Like they were talking about how people tend to lock in so bad that they forget to live their actual life, which is me. I feel like when it comes to having and keeping perspective, I'm decent with that. But when it comes to actually like rewarding myself, living life, like going out, taking time off, doing things like that, having balance, that's where I fall short. You feel me? That's where I take my little L's and shit like that. And I could definitely do better with it than bro, it's 3 in the morning, bro. Who needs you right now, bro? Come on, bro. Yeah, yo, like I said, man, like I feel like my thing is just, you know, I need a better balance. But at the same time, I know I fear, like I get distracted easy, I get carried away, and I get locked in. Like if y'all know me, bro, if y'all see the way I am in the studio, bro, like I'm just in and I'm not doing nothing else. So when I start filming, I'm in and I'm not doing nothing else. So it's like if I get distracted, my fear is that I'll get distracted and I'll go in and like nothing else. You know what I'm saying? That's why I'm also very cautious of like getting into a relationship or jumping into anything serious right now, because it's like, bro, I'm overly obsessive about whatever I got going on, and like I love and I love hard. So it's like if I get into anything, I'm gonna become obsessed with what I got going on, and I'm gonna try to be the best this and try to do that. And it's like I don't think I could really manage my career and a relationship at the same time. So it's like it sucks, because it's like there's a lot of things that I'm putting down for this career and this lifestyle that I'm living. But at the end of the day, bro, it's like, man, I'm not gonna touch M's with a relationship, bro. I'm not gonna touch M's with a relationship. But once I get those M's, I feel like everything, you know what I'm saying? I'm literally talking how they're telling us not to talk in this video, but it's just like, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of, I need to process and let that shit sit down and sink in and actually put it into application. Because realistically, bro, what if I don't ever touch these M's? I'm just sitting here lonely for the rest of my life, bro. Oh! Like that would be crazy. So, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot to uncover, and we'll get there eventually. But chat, let me know what y'all thought of this video, man. If y'all are new here, please be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed what you've seen. Let me know down in the comments down below how you felt about this video, if you have any thoughts, if you have any perspectives on how you feel and how you operate. And if there's anything you think I should react to or any discussions you think I should get into, be sure to also leave those in the comments down below. Once again, I go by the name of Jasby Nams. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace out.
Yeah. I'm getting gritty on these niggas. I'm getting gritty on these bitches. Here we go, another talking again. Yeah. I'm getting gritty on these niggas. I'm getting gritty on these bitches. Here we go, another talking again. Yeah. I'm getting gritty on these niggas. I'm getting gritty on these bitches.